Hello everyone. Joining us today is Priyadarshan Sahasrabuddhe, the founder of Vaayu Biogas, a passionate advocate for sustainable energy solutions. With a career rooted in environmental innovation, Priyadarshan has dedicated himself to developing solutions so we all can live nature-friendly lifestyles. For Priyadarshan, Vaayu Biogas is not just about technology, it's about inspiring action for a cleaner, greener future. Priyadarshan, welcome to the Why Involve podcast. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
And we have kind of almost spent a year together during the second orbit cohort, and
yes.
We've learned a lot of things together.
Yes.
I always saw you as a extremely passionate guy, and I was very excited to hear about your ideas and whatever conversations we had. They were quite exciting and inspirational, I would say. In context to that, I obviously want to understand from you that what was the thought behind working towards sustainable living, and what were the challenges that you faced, and which you are still working on, still overcoming. So could you just talk about that, please?
Yeah. I think the reason why I'm working on this subject is essentially the sense of restlessness that comes in when you think about these ideas. Particularly, one idea is rather simple, that we have built this civilization on a form of energy which is finite, and we don't have much of an idea what we are going to do when it finishes. And the second one is a recent phenomenon, which is that of climate change, and which I got exposed to when I was studying engineering in college. A documentary had come out called An Inconvenient Truth, which spoke about the problem of climate change. And when you listen to these ideas, they really make you restless. And I think it is in that restlessness, and which still continues to be there, is where my desire to work on these, on sustainability comes in. The problem itself is huge, which we are trying to solve. So the fact that you are facing a really complex problem is the fundamental challenge. But then when you choose the medium to work on it, and I have ended up choosing the medium of business, then one has to follow the dharma of the medium of business. And that is my current challenge, to be able to see business and solve the problem.
So, from a growth, when I talk growth, purely business, right? How do you envisage growth, right? I know that right now you are building the foundational blocks in place, but certainly you are moving ahead with certain things in mind. How do you see that growth panning out?
We have one solution which people are buying, and there is a business case now to scale it up. So, as of now, it keeps changing, but right now I feel it's best left to people who are good at it.
Good.
So now it's about building a team who are good at doing that. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. So this is one effort that I am putting it right now, because there are people who do it much better than I can. And there is a strong case, therefore, for me to surrender to their better capability.
And I believe that is much required, not from a capability perspective, but if you have to focus on growing your business,
yes,
then you obviously need to pay attention to the business growth.
Absolutely.
And not just the operations. So,
yes.
So what you're saying is that you're building a team.
Yes.
You're building a team that will help you take this, fundamentally take the operations to the market, and you will want to focus on the pure business growth perspective of it.
Yes. And I'll also tell you, the growth of my business is directly linked to its impact.
Yeah.
Therefore, the heart is in the impact, and the mind is the growth. But ultimately it feeds my heart, because the more the systems are set up, the more the waste is managed. And also, this is how I call it, okay? So I keep analyzing who I am and what I am good at. And when you begin business, you have to do everything. You may not be good at many of them, but you manage somehow, But now when the expectations are more professional, you realize your limitations when it comes to dealing with certain functions.
That's right.
But you also realize your strengths of dealing with certain functions. So my objective currently is to earn the space and time for myself so that I can work on those functions in which I am really good at.
Right.
Okay. And one of them is building the next solution, building the next solution, building the next solution. So we have a food waste biogas. We have developed a human waste biogas, which is one of my most satisfying creation, because it manages something that we have considered the most dirtiest thing and have created huge problems because of that. So I have a solution for that now. Then we run a cafe where we cook entirely on biogas. It's at our workshop, which is in a farm. We grow food over there. So that is one space where I can attract a lot of people. And I learned the hard way that food is business.
Yep.
So you don't go to a cafe and negotiate the price of coffee. You just pay. And people are attracted to food.
Yep.
Okay, they won't come to see my biogas, but they'll come to have good food in a good ambience. So we are trying to leverage that. The next thing I'm working on is I'm growing food on my terrace. And all of this gets linked because the fertilizer goes to growing food, the biomass which comes out goes to making the soil, and the water of my house through the sewage biogas can go back to this growing, and also the grey water can go back. So building the next solution, when I have a ready pipeline of sales, operations and customer support. In this ready pipeline, which is run by professionals who are far better at doing it, my job would be then to put the next product in that pipeline.
Oh, that's very interesting. And during some of our prior conversations, and I've watched a couple of your videos that you were featured on National Geographic, BBC, YouTube, and many other interviews. And what I gathered, and also during our conversations, I kind of always had the question that initially you said that I experimented with something. It started, for lack of a better word, as a hobby, and as an experiment.
Yes.
So, and right now you spoke about building a sustainable business model out of it. So certainly you're not doing this for charity. I mean, this is just not a one-off venture where you're saying, no, I'm doing this as a side business. This is your core business, right? And so how do you see this planning as a sustainable business, right? And that's what I would like to understand, because there are brilliant thoughts and brilliant ideas and brilliant concept behind all this. And you have made it work. It's not that it's not a concept anymore. You have actually made it work. Now, having experimented, like you mentioned, that 100% of your own cooking is done on biogas that you make on your own, right? And that's a model that you experimented with that, you improved it. So what gave you that idea that, this can be a business? I mean, I want to understand that.
Actually, it happened very organically. When I made the first, I was very fortunate to have got guidance from Dr. Anand Karve, who has done some very fundamental work on this science of biogas. He's a scientist by nature, but he also had made systems which used to work. So he had taken the next step also. And I got to learn this science from him and make my first working unit. And when it started to work, I got more and more connected with what all it could accomplish. So this was one of my big learnings, that when you actually do something, you get to know the problem even better. Even the understanding of the problem changes when you start to solve it. And I have experienced that journey myself. So when I made the first system, it was difficult for me to use it. I was the user. And to improve my user experiences, I started making improvements in it. That was how it began. And it reached a stage where I felt, now I am happy using this. And so I started talking to my family and friends, my father's sister and my closest friend. And actually I forced them to start to use it. And I also forced them to pay for it. That's how it began. And then it has just been one thing led to the other kind of situation where and then it evolved. After about 3 years, I felt confident enough that we could register a separate company for this reason. And then we registered our company in 2019. So that's how, although I was not really trained or excited about building business per se, but rather than building the solution, but nevertheless we ventured in. And that's how it has been. And now I'll tell you what my conscience keeper is. My home system, the Vaayu in my house and the gas balloon in my house is my conscience. So whenever it is above the green mark, so there are 2 marks, one is the red mark and one is the green mark. So when the balloon is above the green mark, my conscience is high. And I just know my system works. That's the conscience from where I know that I can offer this to other people because it works. But having said that, when you see a customer in the person in front, then as I said, you have to follow the dharma of business. You are seeing a person who is buying something. So you have to be able to appeal to the buying psychology of the person. So all these rules of the game we have to follow. And so that we can build a sustainable business around it. So those are essentially enrolling for the second orbit program, trying to learn how businesses are set up, how they are nurtured. That was a step in that direction towards.
Understood. No, that's really exciting, and I always wanted to know what thought goes behind an idea. I mean, like this, and to be honest enough, if something like this is occurred in my mind, the question is, what am I doing about it? But I think you seem to have not only thought about it, but also on the path to do something about it. I think the practical implementation of it is more important than just the thought. Being aware is one thing, but being able to contribute is actually more important. But during this journey, I mean, you started with, you say, friends and family. You proved it on your own, then you took it to your friends and family, and then you actually expanded it, not only to homes, but you took it to smaller areas, residential societies, canteens, and stuff like that. You also, I believe one of the most brilliant things that during our conversations that I learned from you is that you involved local sanitation workers, the Safai Karmacharis, and you made them a part of this system. Can you enlighten me about that? I mean, how did that kind of formulate? How did that occur to you? Was it just natural progression, or was it, or did it require ideation from others? How did it all came to?
Right. So actually, this way of looking at things comes to me because I was a part of a program called Nirman, which was started for youth by डॉक्टर अभय बंग आणि डॉक्टर राणी बंग, जे गडचिरोलीला असतात. त्यांनी युवांसाठी हा उपक्रम चालू केला होता. आणि मी पुढे आयुष्यात काय करू ह्याचा आपण ह्याचं उत्तर शोधत असतो. तर ते शोधण्यासाठी कुठे शोधावं, तर आपल्या भोवताली जगात काय चालू आहे, तिथे काय प्रश्न आहेत, ह्याच्याशी आपलं नातं जोडलं जावं, जेणेकरून ते बदलण्यासाठी किंवा ते सुधारण्यासाठी आपण आयुष्यात काय करायचं हे आपल्याला सापडू शकेल. तर त्या सगळ्या उपक्रमांमध्ये आम्ही म्हणजे मी आपली जी घंटागाडी येते की जी कचरा गोळा करते, तर त्या घंटागाडीमध्ये बसून प्रवास केलेला आहे आणि तो अनुभव मी घेतलेला आहे. त्यामुळे हे आपल्या परिस्थितीशी जाऊन जोडा, ही विचारधारा तेव्हापासून होती. तर जेव्हा माझ्या लक्षात आलं की कचऱ्यात ताकद आहे आणि मी हा कचरा टाकून माझा कुकर त्याच्यावर शिजतो आहे, तर खूप नॅचरली मला असं वाटलं की ही जी सफाई कर्मचारी जी आपल्या घरातून कचरा गोळा करतात, ते रोज, आता उदाहरणार्थ स्वच्छ ही पुण्यात मोठी कोऑपरेटिव्ह आहे. पुण्यात असे खूप वेगवेगळे प्रयोग चालू आहेत आणि स्वच्छ हा त्याच्यातला एक खूप मोठा प्रयोग आहे, ज्याच्यात त्यांनी 4,500 कचरा वेचकांना एकत्र आणलं आहे आणि कॉर्पोरेशनला त्यांनी कन्व्हिन्स केलं की ही लोक शहर स्वच्छ ठेवण्यासाठी खूप महत्त्वाची भूमिका बजावत आहेत आणि ती जबाबदारी खरं कॉर्पोरेशनची आहे, म्हणजे ते तुमचं काम करतायत आणि ते तुम्ही रेकग्नाइज केलं पाहिजे, अशी ती विषय चालू झाला आणि गेले 20 वर्षाच्या त्यांचं कार्य आहे. तर ही लोक 200 घरातनं कचरा गोळा करतात, जवळजवळ 100 किलो. तर या 100 किलो कचरा जर रोज बायोगॅसमध्ये जिरवला गेला तर त्याच्यातनं वर्षाचे 100 सिलेंडर इतका गॅस निर्माण होऊ शकतो. म्हणजे त्या कचऱ्याचं खरं मूल्य 1 लाख रुपये आहे आजच्या बाजारभावाने. म्हणजे 1 लाख रुपयाचा ऐवज ते रोज हातातून घंटागाडीत म्हणजे त्या कलेक्शन पॉईंटपर्यंत नेतात आणि इव्हेंच्युअली इट गेट्स लँडफिल्ड. सो देर वॉज अ केस हिअर की ह्यांना जर हे बायोगॅस ऑपरेट करता आले तर त्यांना जास्त मोबदला मिळू शकेल त्यांच्या कामाचा. आज त्यांना ओल्या कचऱ्यातून काहीच मोबदला मिळत नाही, उलट कॉर्पोरेशनला त्याच्यावर खर्च करावा लागतो. तर this was where the thought began. आणि पुण्यात एक स्वच्छ नावाची संस्था असल्यामुळे मी त्यांना जाऊन आय वेंट अँड मेट देम. त्यांना एक मोठी परंपरा आहे, त्यांना त्यांचे संघर्ष आहेत, तर त्यांना ह्याविषयी कन्व्हिन्स करायला पण खूप वेळ लागला. पण हळूहळू दे वर कन्व्हिन्स्ड अबाउट दिस आयडिया अँड दे रिअलाइज की आम्ही ह्या सफाई कर्मचाऱ्यांसाठी डिग्निफाईड लाईव्हलीहूड याच्यावर काम करतोय आणि धिस एक्झॅक्टली फिट्स विथ दॅट. दे कॅन अर्न अ डिग्निफाईड लाईव्हलीहूड इफ दे अपस्किल देमसेल्व्स. सो नाव दे आर इक्वली ऑन बोर्ड आणि त्यांनाही हे तितकंच पटलेलं आहे जितकं मला ह्याच्यात शक्यता दिसते. तो इफेक्ट, सो दिस इज अ व्हेरी पॉवरफुल कोलॅबोरेटिव्ह इंटरव्हेन्शन दॅट वी आर डुईंग. सो जसं की माझ्याकडे माझा वायू जो ऑपरेट केला जातो तो माझ्या गल्लीतले सफाई कर्मचारी ऑपरेट करतात. दे आर माय गॅस सप्लायर्स. सो दे आर नाव कॉम्पिटिंग विथ HP who otherwise used to give me cylinders. So they are plus they are managing waste and they are earning more. So this is an idea now we are gradually trying to explore and I see the future wherein हे जे मंडळी आहेत त्यांना एक तर बायोगॅस ऑपरेट करण्याचं ट्रेनिंग आणि दुसरं कम्युनिकेशनचं ट्रेनिंग. द आयडिया बेईंग की दे विल कम टू यू ॲज अ सिटिझन अँड दे विल से आय विल गिव्ह यू an alternative to a fossil fuel. You set up a biogas plant, I will operate and maintain it for you. And I will give you gas at a lower price than you would had to buy it from the market. So this is the direction in which we are trying to build this around this possibility so that we are able to substitute a fossil fuel and the value generated is directly received by the Safai Karmachari. So it becomes a better livelihood for them.
That brings me to my next question. I mean, there is of course, you spoke about the sanitation workers, Safai Karmacharanbandal to bollas, involvement, त्यांचे involvement, they becoming energy suppliers rather than just sanitation workers, right? And that's like a very unique way of taking this forward. But obviously, for a business to grow, it will have to grow exponentially, right? This model has to be replicable. But at the same time, from your business model perspective, there is a domestic solution, there is maybe a residential or commercial complex solution, and you have certain solutions for depending upon the size of that particular system or platform. Now, how do you see acceptance? So let's say domestic consumers are one larger chunk of your potential customers. So how do you see acceptance from this community first? And then we will get to the other communities, which are housing societies or corporates or organizations.
Okay, so I think this is where I don't look at it as a problem. This is where I look at it as a business. And just as we have acceptance for these flowers which are in the front. Now these are false. They are made of plastic. But there is acceptance. In spite of all the harm that it can do. Well, this was created by the business which made them. And there are means and ways of doing it. So we just got to learn those means and ways of making people accept things which are good. So essentially it's about, in a very loose way, it's about marketing or branding. So this challenge is solved through that approach, and which is why now I'm more prepared and ready to be on the various social media platforms, because today we didn't have this say 20 years back, but we have this today. So through my platform I can reach people. For example, I got a call from Jaipur. He really liked our approach and he wants to do something. So I don't think this would have been possible maybe 20 years back. So such as the podcast like this one. So these are going to be powerful methods to reach out to people who want to do something. So I think I would address this problem through that route. And I typically like to say it as we need to be the Steve Jobs of climate.
That's it.
So we need to take that approach rather than looking at it as a, education or awareness type. It's more about creating excitement around it, prestige around it.
You said you worked with Nirman.
Yeah.
And then during our earlier conversation and in one of your prior interviews or videos, and on your website, I noticed that you won the Green Skills Innovation Challenge. And how did that influence or impact your thinking towards this particular initiative as a business idea?
First of all, so the Green Skills Innovation Challenge was a global challenge by Ashoka Foundation. And this is a foundation which is working on encouraging people to make change in the world. So everyone a change maker, that's their tagline. So first of all, it was very heartwarming to see that the fact that we are trying to bring change is looked very positively in that community. That was, and the fact that there are people all over the world trying to do something like that. The Green Skills Innovation Challenge was about how you are bringing in green skills in the world, and the fact that we were working with Safai Karmacharis and we were skilling them to become energy suppliers. That was the change which won us that competition. But what happened later was they conducted a course for us called Systems Change Thinking. And I was exposed to this idea of what is systems change in that course. And that helped me to bring a method to the madness that I was trying to solve in. That was really helpful. So for example, the fact that we are changing the job profile of a Safai Karmachari is a change in the system. Okay? And that has far more impact than doing direct impact, like setting up one biogas. When you have 4,500 people now talking about you, because they are going to earn more out of it. So that's, and it also opened me to other stakeholders. Like in my earlier vision, I wouldn't have dialogue with Pune Municipal Corporation because I always felt that I would never be able to influence them. But now I realize it is not the case. PMC is one of the biggest stakeholders in waste management of Pune. Therefore, we have to involve PMC.
Right.
So these were some of the positive changes because of that course. But also it gave us a lot of visibility. And at a global level. So the National Geographic people got to know about our work because of the Green Skills Innovation Award. I don't think we would have been visible to National Geographic otherwise. So these were some of the really valuable outputs of participating in that competition.
One part of the we touched upon the your approach on reaching out to the market. You say you learned and acknowledged the fact that you have to be on social media platforms to be able to influence, take your message, take your product and take your solution to a specific market, be it individual users. But when it comes to, let's say, larger residential complexes or when you look at corporate customers, what is your strategy to reach to that market?
Right. So I have learned the hard way, that in business you got to find a paying customer, and therefore you need a customer who would decide. And the housing society segment is in that sense a really tough customer, because the problem is not about affordability, but the problem is to arrive at a decision. So I used to, joke about it that I'm not in the business of managing waste, I'm in the business of building consensus amongst people. And that's an interesting skill to learn, because in general, consensus building is going to be needed a lot in the world ahead. So right now we are, to be honest, as a business, we are not focusing on the housing society segment, although we are extremely relevant to them. We'll have to build some strategy to get that consensus happening. What has worked, I must tell you, that the developers are setting up this as a waste management solution while the building is being constructed. That is working out. Because then the money is paid by the developer themselves.
And it's happening at source.
At source,
yeah.
yes. So that is working out, and that is something we would like to explore. And when it comes to corporates, I think the pitch is simple. First thing, they have money to spend.
Okay.
Second is, there are more reasons to do it other than just being responsible, which is the ESG compliance. Plus, we are in times where the climate cause has now found significant resonance amongst the business community.
That's right.
So we are in good times actually when it comes to reaching out to corporates. We are riding on that possibility right now. So right now we have also decided to focus on Pune has a very flourishing industry around itself. Sakad, MIDC, Pimpri Chinchwad and Ranjangaon, so on. So we are focusing on companies who have canteens in their premises and are right now, they don't have a solution to manage their waste. So that is where sale is going to happen.
So, sorry to break you there, but that's a very interesting thing. I think by analyzing this, I think at least as far as the corporate or industrial segment around the city is concerned, you have fairly clearly defined your market segment. Is that safe?
Absolutely, and this was one of the hard learnings which we learned in our second orbit program, to define your market. And it gives you so much clarity to say no to certain things and yes to certain things. And I'm benefiting from that clarity of defining the market.
Yeah, and then probably as a part of a slightly long-term view, you had stated this earlier in some of our discussions, is that to influence more local communities, probably it will have to be done through some central governmental bodies to bring more compliance-oriented directives, which you could ride on, right? And that is one of the aspects that you had also briefly touched upon. But I understand now that you have taken conscious efforts to recognize the specific segment that you want to address right now, because finally at the end of the day, it's a business. Right, and when you want to do better things in business, you have to build, you have to have the building blocks in place. And I believe that these are the right building blocks to reach out to a larger market. But that brings, we spoke about Pune as a city. I mean, you belong to the city, you know the city well. But beyond Pune, what are you thinking?
Right. So I think it's going to be a mix between what a regular business, how it would scale up, versus how a climate solving business would scale up. And because we are solving a problem which is so fundamental, this is where a lot of people get attracted to your work beyond the business side of it. So I haven't given it much thought, but most likely what I would currently bet on is somebody who is equally restless about wanting to do something about this problem. And what we can offer to such a person is the fact to make a living out of it.
Right.
So this is how it is going to be more about finding right people and learning from what mistakes we have made to make our business successful so that it could be replicated there. And this is a person who would talk about it in the local way.
Right.
Unlike how every McDonald's looks the same, every city would be different when it comes to solving their problems. And that diversity and localization will be an essential element of how these climate solving changes will go to the world.
I agree. And that's I think very insightful in terms of, I think with that answer you're telling us and you're telling me very clearly that right now you're looking at as we spoke about, you're looking at the foundational blocks right now. The strategy to expand beyond a particular geographical region will evolve. One of the aspects could be partnerships, with other organizations, or could be with other like-minded people. But similarly, when it comes to, as a business, we also face challenges in forming partnerships, because the first foundational block of finding the right partner is trust, right? Trust and the meeting of minds. I think you probably will have to work on the meeting of mind first, and then take it to a larger market. But that's really, really interesting. You were influenced by certain things. You tried this out as a hobby. You experimented. You corrected a lot of things. Obviously, using your technology skills, right? And then you improved the model. It worked for you. Then you took it to your friends and family. It worked there. You were able to influence them, or compel them rather, to use that. And then it started spreading. So currently, apart from what you're doing, was there a lot of traction on what you call word of mouth, or did it take you to build a community that you could address largely, or in the initial run before it actually started making business sense? So was there a lot of word of mouth around what you're trying to do and stuff like that?
Definitely, that has played a very important role. But having said that, when we got the National Geographic coverage, that was a really big boost in terms of it becomes more believable, and it feels more authentic when somebody like National Geographic covers your work. And especially when it comes to convincing corporates. So some amount of standing is developed because of the fact that we have been covered by Nat Geo. But word of mouth has definitely played an important role.
So I think what we have we have covered a lot about where did this thinking evolve from, what you did, experimentation and all those things. I don't think that we have talked about, let's say, the actual model. We haven't spoken about how it works.
Okay.
So if you can kind of educate me, considering me as let's say a residential user.
Okay.
Just my use case.
Okay.
How it works.
Okay. So it's a really amazing mechanism at work. So basically we eat food. The reason is because it has energy in it. So for example, इथे साखर सांडली तर भवती मुंग्या येतात because they are interested in the energy which is there in the food. पण इथे पेट्रोल सांडलं तर मुंग्या येत नाहीत. Because although petrol also has energy and sakhar also has energy, but as living beings we can digest food, we can't digest fuel, petrol. Both are forms of energy. So and the second thing is, if your petrol tank empties out, you cannot put sugar in it. So what does a biogas do? It converts a edible form of energy or digestible form of food energy into a burnable form of fuel energy. It's just a form changing mechanism. Okay? And this form changing is done by a living process, by a living agent. And these are microbes, which are called methanogens. So their input is a carbohydrate, which is food, and their output is a hydrocarbon, which in this case is methane.
Yeah.
This is what is happening in the biogas digester. It is filled with a liquid culture of microbes, which we provide at the time of installation. All you got to do is start feeding it. And they will start giving you the output in the form of methane gas.
So one question is, when you say start feeding it, largely you're talking about food waste.
Food waste, yes. Which is your leftovers in your home. It could be vegetable peels, chai patti, which get wasted. But it could also be perhaps excess cooked food or shira anna. So it doesn't matter whether it is raw or whether it is cooked. Both of your food can go inside a biogas. And once when you start realizing this potential of food, you automatically start seeing food elsewhere also. So when you go shopping for vegetables, you would see some kharab zhaleli bhaji. And you would ask the fellow ki, "Are hetsa kai karnar आहेस तू?" And he would gladly give it to you, which you could put in your biogas. The lady who comes to cook in my house, she brings her waste. Because she also feels nice, it is going in the rightful place. So you suddenly start seeing energy in what's wasted around. Many a times people feed dogs with biscuits, and then the biscuits are just lying on the ground, on the road. So I have this urge of, I should pick up these biscuits and put it in my Vaayu. Or even you go to a hotel and they give you packed sugar.
Yeah.
And I don't use all of it. So I bring it back. Because I can do best justice to that sugar if I put it in Vaayu, for example. So essentially this is a system which will do the work in your balcony. You feed it and it will give you cooking gas out. It is connected directly to your stove. We do all the connectioning and it will sit on your regular cooking platform next to your existing LPG or MNGL burner, and you can start cooking on it.
Pretty cool. And, the question again comes as an individual or domestic user. What kind of training do I need? And how difficult or easy it is to manage the setup?
Right. So, to give you an abstract answer, it is like having a pet at home. So, if you ever had a dog or a cat, they are much more difficult to manage than Vaayu. Okay? They don't have, because Vaayu doesn't have modes. So, there is very little training required, and which you kind of you build that understanding over time when you use it. But we will definitely train you in certain fundamentals at the time of installation.
What I'm gathering from this is that when you're trying to do it at scale, it is just multiplied. Is that, technically, is that when you're, let's say, doing it, it is being implemented for a one residential unit, and when it has to be implemented in a, let's say, larger, let's say, residential society or a large canteen of a corporate, it's just multiplying the model, right? Is that, or is there a big technology change?
So we have followed few principles while setting up our systems. One is we have tried to go to the source of the waste, as against trying to go away from source and investing in collecting waste. So this is something we have tried to avoid at the outset. This makes the whole complexity of collecting waste, we eliminate that complexity entirely. That is one design principle. Then we have made the home module is small. We'll call it small for the timing. And then we have a slightly bigger module. And if we have more waste, we just put multiple modules. That's the approach we have taken as of now. And the reason is that module is human scale. Okay? And I like to say that if you have one cow which gives 4 liters of milk and eats 20 kg of fodder, if you want 8 liters of milk, what do? So you don't feed it 40 kg of fodder, you buy one more cow. So that's the approach we have followed. So each module is independent, and therefore it can be managed by a common person with limited tools, with simple tools. And plus, if some problem comes to one module, the others continue to work. So this is the approach we have followed as of now. And
sorry to break you. And in your larger setups, some of the largest, are you using any automation? Need not be necessarily towards bringing in waste and feeding it, but automation in terms of monitoring the system and some of the matriculation. Is there any automation?
So we don't have much automation as of now. It's completely biology doing its job. We do have some measurement tools which we use now, just so that we can measure how much.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, in terms of how is the system performing? Right? For example, you're saying your units are modular. Let's say if there is a breakdown in one unit, is it detectable? If not now, is it on your radar? Those are the...
It is definitely on my radar. And because if we want to really install large numbers of such systems, no matter how small they are, and if you want to make sure they're working fine, this kind of intervention is definitely going to help us do that.
Right.
So I typically imagine this, for example, I am a decision maker for a district, like a district collector or Jilla Parishad CEO. And I have set up 10,000 biogas plants, and I'm getting to know which of them are working because of use of simple tech. It's really going to help me control my intervention. So yes, this is definitely going to help, and it's on the agenda.
We spoke about a lot of things, पण एक specific प्रश्न मला डोक्यात येतो की याचं कुठे ना कुठेतरी connection, the way I will see as an individual, or even I will see as a head of a corporate organization, is impact, right? What impact am I making? Whether I'm doing it on my own, whether I'm using your services or your product or platform, what impact? And can you educate us about the impact that or the contribution that we can make?
Right. Well, I think in many ways our lifestyles are really screwed up, and many a times we feel helpless, although we want to do something about it. And the problems that we are trying to solve, which is fossil energy dependence and climate change. At the root cause of that is our lifestyles which are dependent on fossil energy. Now, the first thing is this gives power to common people to say no to a fossil energy. Like, I haven't used LPG since 2019. I have been able to say no to a fossil fuel and make my own. And I didn't have to take anybody's permission. No compliance. I mean, it's just gathered from the waste in my neighborhood. So this is one thing. It democratizes your power to do something and brings the power in the hands of common people. But additionally, we are connecting with this mysterious world of how the energy flows in the biological world. When you cook on that energy, which was actually waste one day back, it's an amazing feeling. But it also gives you fertilizer and might inspire you to start growing, because now you have fertilizer to grow on. It also gives you your soil medium, which is the fibrous content of food on which you can grow and use it as a soil replacement. So it can become a gateway to taking multiple actions within your own lifestyle.
Can we say that the biggest impact that your system and your platform can make is to help us consume less and contribute more? Would you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
First of all, it will link you to action. And one action leads to the other. So it will link you to a larger world of action. So yes, definitely. And sans action, all that stress just keeps gathering. But the moment you start taking action, it starts to dissolve and you see multiple possibilities. I just had one interesting possibility that we are working on. Many a times, like you mentioned, sometimes you feel that you are alone and what will happen if I alone do something? So interestingly, an idea came where I felt I should go to my customers and say to them, you have bought Vaayu and essentially you've already invested in Vaayu. Would you like to buy a share in the company that makes Vaayu? This is the proposition I'm going to them with. To feel a part of a bigger picture and the fact that now they are part of an institution which is trying to take this little impact to far more people. So this is another interesting thing that we are trying to experiment with, and purely because me and my customers are on the same side of the table, because both of us are trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, no, that's really inspiring, I would say. And I think if you make that offer to me, I'll pick you up on that. Right? So, anyways, there you go, folks. I think we had a wonderful conversation with Priyadarshan. I think when you talk to him, his passion truly comes up. And but one primary differentiator between what Priyadarshan and his team does differently is that they are converting this passion into a sustainable business model. And to support Priyadarshan in his vision, Priyadarshan and his team in his vision, we are going to support him. At the same time, what we are going to do is, in honor of Priyadarshan having this podcast, we are going to plant one tree. So thank you very much for attending this podcast, Priyadarshan. It was a pleasure and honor having you.
Thank you for inviting me. It was really fun conversing. Thank you
very much.
Yeah.